Now, today, I'm really pleased to add members to my team that will get the job done. In addition to the pandemic's grim milestone, the economic crisis has left millions of Americans out of work, without a paycheck, without health insurance, unable to put enough food on the table, literally unable to put food on the table, and unsure whether they can pay their rent for when the new year begins or make their mortgage payments. It's affecting everyone from farmers to students, seniors to veterans, in red states, blue states, small towns, and big cities. And that's why the Congress needs to act, and act now, on the COVID package. I spoke to my two friends who are still in the Congress, the Vice President and the soon-to-be Secretary of HUD. We have to get this done. They're pushing hard, but it doesn't look so good right now. But it has to get done before they go home. Millions and millions of Americans simply can't wait any longer. We shouldn't, we can't get bogged down in issues that don't help people. State and local governments need the help. Not only that, as I've said for months, we need to protect essential personnel like law enforcement, firefighters, to make sure everything is in place and effectively distribute the vaccine so that we can do that. This relief package won't be the total answer, even if it gets passed, but it's an important first step. There's so much we have to do. These crises have ripped the blinders right off the systemic racism that exists in America. The American people now can see clearly. Black, Latino, Native Americans, nearly 3 times more likely to die from COVID and more likely to get COVID to begin with. Black and Latino unemployment rates too large, too high. Communities of color are left to ask whether they'll ever be able to break the cycle, where in good times they lag, in bad times they're hit first and the hardest, and in recovery they take the longest to bounce back. Vice President-elect Harris and I knew we'd have our work cut out for us when we got elected, but we also knew we could build a team that would meet this unique and challenging moment in American history. Some are familiar faces. Some are new in their roles. All are facing new circumstances and challenges. That's a good thing. They bring deep experience and bold new thinking. Above all, they know how government should and can work for all Americans. For Secretary of Agriculture, I nominate Tom Vilsack, an outstanding 2-term governor of Iowa, the best Secretary of Agriculture I believe this country's ever had. He was there when the Great Recession was pummeling rural America. Over 8 years, he oversaw a record-breaking investment to bring us back. He implemented the Recovery Act to help rural communities recover and rebuild. Tom helped expand markets around the world for American farmers. He improved our food safety standards and helped millions of children and families receive healthy meals. He wasn't anxious to come back. He wasn't looking for this job, but I was persistent. And I asked him to serve again in this role because he knows the USDA inside and out. He knows the government inside and out. We need that experience now. 1 in 6 Americans and a quarter of the children in America are facing hunger. The opioid crisis in rural America is a rural America crisis, as is the climate crisis with droughts, floods, wiping out crops in small towns. Farmers and small businesses, small towns, rural communities, white, black, Latino, are reeling from the pandemic and economic downturn. Tom knows the full range of resources available to this department to get immediate relief to those most in need and address the crises, the crises facing rural America. He knows how to build back better for all Americans. He helped develop my Rural Plan for America in the campaign, and he now has the dubious distinction of having to carry it out. It's a good plan. That includes making American agriculture the first in the world to achieve net zero emissions and create new sources of income for farmers in the process. By paying farmers to put their land in conservation, plant cover crops that use the soil to capture carbon, and it'll ensure that USDA promotes true racial equality and inclusion. He recognizes the history of discrimination and will root it out wherever it exists. I've known Tom for a long time. and I'm confident he'll get it done. For Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, I am really pleased to nominate Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who I might add could do many jobs beyond the one I'm asking her to do. But I think the job I'm asking you to do, Congresswoman, is critically important to everything that the Vice President and I believe is how we're going to build back better. As a former mayor, she understands how to manage challenges and forge solutions at a local level. Force her against unfair trade practices by China, which will be a key priority in the Biden-Harris administration. She understands that we need a more strategic, to be considerably more strategic than we've been in how we trade, and that makes us all stronger. How we're made stronger by trade. One that leaves nobody behind. She's going to work closely with my economic and national security and foreign policy teams. Trade will be a critical pillar in our ability to build back better and carry out our foreign policy for the middle class. When I announced my candidacy, I talked about a foreign policy for the middle class, and I meant that in a literal sense. She also brings a sophisticated understanding of the threats of climate change to trade, as well as addresses the climate crisis with urgency. She also embodies a powerful immigration story of America. Her parents were both born in China. They moved to Taiwan and then came to the United States, where Catherine was born. Her parents became government scientists at Walter Reed and NIH, inspiring their daughter to pursue a career in public service. Catherine says she's the first American-born member of a family and a second-generation U.S. government servant. That's a great way of expressing it. If confirmed, she'd be the first Asian American and the first woman of color to serve in this position. And our nation, our economy, our workers, our businesses will be fortunate to have her serve in this role. As director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, I spent some time convincing this wonderful public servant, but I'm appointing Susan Rice, former United States Ambassador to the United Nations, former National Security Advisor to President Obama, former cabinet member, team player, policy heavyweight, through tough negotiator, trusted and tested public servant, who I've known for a long time, not only admired, but become friends with. She'll lead and coordinate my critical domestic policy agenda. And she's going to elevate and turbocharge a revitalized Domestic Policy Council to help us build back better on every issue across the board. She'll work closely with my Director of National Economic Council, Brian Dees. She'll work closely with my National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, and the National Security Council. Together, they'll align domestic policy, economic policy, and national security unlike ever before. This is a big and critical role. That's why I asked Susan to serve. She's been there. She knows what it takes, like she did in helping mobilize the entire federal government to end the Ebola crisis. And her voice is particularly needed at this critical moment. A granddaughter of immigrants, a descendant of enslaved people, Susan will be an effective and tireless champion for all Americans. And she knows I'm really thrilled she was willing to come back, be at my side in the White House. To each of you on this team, you have my gratitude, the gratitude of the Vice President and me for answering the call to serve again. To your families, thank you. We know the sacrifice you're making to allow your family member to serve as they are going to, God willing. And to career civil servants at these agencies, we look forward to working with you because we know how many talented people are there. It's time to rededicate ourselves to the mission our government agencies were entrusted with. And to the American people, help is on the way. I promise we're not going to let you down.